The Rock's Black Adam almost debuted in Snyderverse sequel. Well, isn't that interesting? Which would stand to reason because, the Black Adam movie project has been around probably longer than the DCEU itself. But anyway, so here we are at Geekosity. And, there's Black Adam, soon to be in his own motion picture at a theater near you. Mere weeks away, I guess, at this point. So anyway, The Rock's Black Adam nearly debuted in a Snyderverse film. However, Warner Brothers canceled it. Well, that's what they do. In 2018, Warner Brothers planned for Black Adam to debut in Suicide Squad 2. This does sound familiar. I think I've heard this before. This would have been a sequel to the David Ayer film. So, in fact, the studio developed Black Adam as the movie's villain. Frequent Ben Affleck collaborator Gavin O'Connor signed to direct. The sequel followed up, of course, David Ayer's original. Thus, it was set in the Snyderverse. Well, it was set in the DCEU, which essentially is the Snyderverse. I mean, you could call it that. It was under Snyder's direction, but there were going to be all these other films connected to it, hence the shared universe aspect. But Snyder was going to be in charge basically with Justice League. Once he was done with his Justice League films, that would have been the end of his involvement, had it all worked out. So, it's like the definitions of Snyderverse has to be settled here. It could be he doesn't come back at all, but his casting and a lot of his aspects and ideas could very well continue. The co-producer was Mike DeLuca. Well, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yes, right. Him and Pam Abdy are sort of the co-heads of Warner Brothers going forward and oversee DC films. Technically, Walter Hamada does, but of course, he exits in October. So, DC films until President Mark. So, that's the situation there. So a lot of the foundations for that, status at the time when they were planning this has returned somewhat. So instead of Suicide Squad 2, DC Films released James Gunn's 2021 box office bomb, The Suicide Squad. Well, was it a bomb? I mean, look, if you go by the metrics, they decided that the Snyder films were bombs and decided to scrap his ideas and move on something else. And that didn't work out. In fact, it was worse. So I liked James Gunn's Suicide Squad much better than the previous one. However, that being said, I've never been able to see David Ayer's cut. He says it's a different movie. So, we got to see Snyder's Justice League. There was some amount of interest in David Ayer's, but that all went up in smoke. And despite the fact that his cut apparently is far more complete than was Snyder's, which, they had to chunk over some money for him to finish it and all that sort of stuff. Which is unfortunate. So I can't completely judge his movie. The one that came out, it has some interesting aspects to it, but it's just a bore fest. I mean, they're just walking around talking about their feelings in the street, So, well, what a wasted opportunity. They had Batman in it. They could have utilized that more, and he had, a Joker. So, but under better script and story ideas, might have worked. I don't know. But anyway, James Gunn, he's a better fit for something like Suicide Squad, I think. And certainly his follow-up to it, Peacemaker, was really good. So there you go. So you can argue his film didn't do all that great, but then you still kind of stuck with it because, Peacemaker was good. And again, I forget what the box office was, but to say it was a complete bomb, and of course there's other factors at the time in 2021 and all that, but you're still kind of stuck with it. So the idea that they're going to scrap all that and move back to their original idea, no, they're not. They're going to a different way. Now, here's the interesting aspect. Does he get back to that where he is involved in Suicide Squad? Well, Amanda Waller shows up in the trailer. The Amanda Waller showing up was interesting in my reckoning because of the claims of people saying they had seen screen tests of the film, and that she has a scene with Superman in it. A Superman didn't mean Henry Cavill was in it. I don't think it was. Probably a body double for the purpose of the scene, which, you know, they could CGI Cavill back into it if some are claiming that's already happened, and we'll find out shortly. But that was the interesting aspect of it. The other interesting aspect is, yes, Amanda Waller becomes a character that provides connection and cohesion within the shared universe. And with her there, and apparently being the one that reaches out to the Justice Society to deal with this Black Adam character. But at the same time, she wants Black Adam. She wants to make use of this guy for a new Suicide Squad team. I'm guessing. I mean, we do see scenes, what appears to be Black Adam captured and locked away in some sort of sci-fi looking cryo tube or whatever. I don't know. And maybe he does get captured. I don't know. And all that stuff. So maybe that's part of the deal. And that's what Amanda Waller's up to. But it's interesting to say, yeah, in a roundabout way, they're getting back to the original idea of Black Adam and the Suicide Squad. And so on and so forth. So it's interesting because a Suicide Squad mission, like the second film they did, they actually sent them on to the kind of missions they would do, where they're sent to a foreign country to clean up some dirty mess, that sort of thing, which is what the plot of the film was. And here, the fictional Middle Eastern country of Kondak, which is the home of Black Adam, that you could have had a mission that the Suicide Squad went on. And it involves Black Adam, and that would have been an interesting take. But they didn't get to it. But now, you know, in a roundabout way, looks like they're going to. So it goes on about Mikey Sutton saying that Man of Steel influenced Black Adam. And from the trailer, you can see that. You can see in how Black Adam himself moves. It's very similar to the movements that you saw in Man of Steel. Him taking on the military looks a lot like Man of Steel. So, yeah, there's an influence there. And I think it's no secret that Dwayne Johnson himself likes those versions of those movies, and probably, you know, him being represented by the same manager, which happens to be his ex-wife, as Henry Cavill is, you know, there's some back and forth there. So, yeah, so would it spin off? Would he show up in Peacemaker? Maybe a glorified cameo that can give you a tease for another Suicide Squad film that he shows up in, to make use of the character and expand upon the story and the importance of him, of them going forward with this, to eventually have him face off against Superman and the Justice League or something along those lines. You know, fine. But the main thing is he's a Shazam character, so they need to get him to take on Shazam. But maybe he'll go on and be seen as this villainous force, and he comes around to not being so villainous. You know, he's not Darkseid or anything like that. But that could be the deal. So, yeah, maybe a cameo of sorts or something for Peacemaker, but only in the service of setting up details for a Suicide Squad film that involves Black Adam, to where they get back to that idea. So as far as this being evidence of the Snyderverse restored, well, again, what's your definition of it? The DCEU is not being completely scrapped and in place of something else. That seemed to be what the direction was at the outset. That doesn't appear to be the case now. So technically speaking, yes, you can say the Snyderverse, if not restored, survives. As for Zack Snyder himself coming in, I don't know. There's competing views on this at the moment. The Flash prequel comic for the Flash film seems to reference Zack Snyder's version of the Justice League. There's a conversation between Barry Allen and Batman in the comic, and Batman's giving Barry Allen a pep talk and all this sort of stuff. Apparently, the idea in the comic book reveals that Batman gives Barry his new Flash suit, and that was an idea that the Snyder people talked about doing later on. That his initial suit was just his first draft suit that he developed. And with Bruce Wayne money, he gets a better one. The idea that Bruce Wayne would have the technology to have it compress and go into his ring, don't know about that, but then no one's ever really explained that. Barry Allen has it. Well, he's really smart. I don't know. I would have thought they came across some, apocalyptic technology or something. But then, of course, they did. Someone mentioned Ryan Choi was in it. So with the nanotechnology, maybe he could have developed something. But anyway, whatever. Don't know what their plan was initially, but a roundabout way it happens. But it only happens through a comic book, a prequel comic, which almost always mean nothing. So maybe there is a scene in the movie where they, reveal that, or it's just dialogue or what have you. But it is interesting, yes. This is another aspect that certain ideas are returned to. And I think that's the case. Even if Snyder comes back to do a Justice League film, again, it won't be the same film that he was going to do at the outset. Those storyboards and everything, parts of it would be utilized. The dark side invasion and the time travel to fix it and all that probably would stay in place. But the rest of it would be very different. And how to weave that into whatever they establish with these new films going forward. They're still in the midst of cleaning up the old regime's leftovers, but after that, where do they go? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. But a lot of what Snyder did will survive. I mean, this is primarily his cast. So if you want to call it that, then yeah, it's been restored. As far as him coming back, I don't know. There's been some stuff about Jay Oliva saying, well, the fandom's too toxic. I like Jay Oliva. He's made some very great points about all this going through, but every time someone throws around toxic fandom, it's just, you make your decisions on that. Well, it could be very successful, but there's some nasty people who want it, so I don't do it. It's a small minority, but still, what is that? It's not worth 5 seconds of anyone's time to put the attention that's the reason. A more believable reason is maybe they did have a meeting, Snyder pitched something, and they decided to pass on it. Probably that could be the deal. So, I don't know. But either way, what Snyder did lives on in some form or fashion. So, there you go. We'll see what Black Adam does shortly.